Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Will, that's Blake, and today we're talking a little Worlds Beyond Number. The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, it's finally back. It feels like it's been like half a year, but I guess it's only been like a couple months, a month?
Yeah, like 6 weeks, I think. I keep thinking, I don't know what it's actually from, but there's like this thing in my, when you have like something that's like on the tip of your brain, it's like I'm doing an awful job explaining this now, but I kept thinking of like, oh yeah, we're so back. Like that's from something.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't remember what it's from though.
I think like, I know what you're talking about. And I think I know like even what specifically you're talking about, but there's like so many like,
yeah,
the boys are back, or, like we're back. So like, it really could be like 100 things, but
also
I feel
the
like
dinosaur movie, We're Back, the cartoon, the hit animated film from my childhood called We're Back.
It's called We're Back?
Yeah, We're Back.
That's a weird title, I feel like.
No, it's because it's dinosaurs in modern day New York.
Okay.
So we're back.
So, like but is it like the dinosaurs : we're back, or is it just we're back?
The dinosaurs are in the promotional poster. Okay. So it's implied. It's an implied the dinosaurs. Okay. It'd be too clunky a title, all right?
Is it animated?
Yeah. It's a classic. You ever seen this movie?
I don't think so. I know this isn't what you're talking about, but you remember that like show that was about like the dinosaurs that was like the weird kind of like not animatronic, but it was like puppets almost, and there was like the little baby dinosaur and the dad.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird show. No, but We're Back. I've seen We're Back like maybe 30 times.
I'm gonna have to Google this afterwards because like maybe I just don't like remember the name, but maybe I'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Scary Carnival. Look it up, guys.
What is that?
People, if they know, they know.
Is it part of We're Back?
Yeah, I was kind of going for like a moment for those who had seen it.
But, okay. I didn't know if you were like we were talking about a new movie all of a sudden. Yeah. That's like Scary Carnival.
Instead, I just blurted out Scary Carnival.
Okay.
So
we're back.
This is about on brand for us.
Yeah. It's felt like a lot longer than it has actually been, I guess. And I mean, I guess I'm kind of launching into already talking about it. So real quick before I do that, is there anything to announce or anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, just our normal slate of content for you guys. Critical Role. We are talking about Loki, which for our Worlds Beyond people, we haven't, since it's been on break, we haven't talked about, which the show's almost over now. But for any of you guys watching that, things are really reaching a fever pitch over there. So it's been pretty interesting. Blake and I will be talking about
things are getting real mind bending.
True.
There's not a lot of time to watch to catch up.
Time keeps on slipping. Before
the finale. That one wasn't a play on. That was just
But yeah, so we got that. We got Critical Role and generalized plug. Join our Discord, especially if you're a Worlds Beyond Number fan, because we need more of y'all over there. Got a lot of Critical Role people, starting to get a bunch of Dimension 20 people. So we need our Worlds Beyond people to come show out, because I keep telling everybody they need to check out this show. And I think some of them are slowly starting to, but come help us, preach the gospel over there.
It's a great time too, because now when you started out, you got 15 episodes to binge.
Yeah.
So
very true.
And the episodes are very palatable.
Yeah, they are.
Which I think's a good word.
Yeah.
I don't know if I used it correctly, but
it makes sense to me. So I approve at least.
Thanks.
But yeah, so there will be a link down in the description below for the old Discord. But yeah, let's get into it. I'm itching to jump back in after the break. And before we jump into our proper discussion, we will do I was going to say quick. This one might not be so quick, but we're going to do a recap of the episode just to get everybody back on the same page. And we will cut that recap out and host it separately in case you just need to check that out if ever you need a refresh. So if you find yourself on just the There will be a link down to our full discussion in the description box as well. But okay. Without further ado, episode 15 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. I don't know the title. Do you happen to know?
Yeah, actually, it's like Hang On to Your Hats or something.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Let's see.
Hang on tight or hold on tight, maybe?
Yeah, Hold On Tight, I think.
Something
Yeah,
to that
I'll
effect.
say it by the end.
Yeah.
I'll say it by the end.
But so we pick up, and just to give you guys a brief reminder of where we left off, Ame was essentially in a coma and the crew was headed to the Citadel. So with episode 15, we pick up with Brennan saying, "It's autumn. It's quiet." And Ame, you're sitting by a tiny dock by the small like pool of or not pool of water, but a small body of water. And we quickly realize that it's a flashback. And we hear grandmother Rin call Ame for help. So she runs back, and as she's kind of like in this flashback, this memory, she hears another voice that's not grandmother Rin, a voice she doesn't recognize that says like, "Very good, like we're seeing promising signs." And it's now that Ame realizes that she is indeed like in a memory. She's kind of like witnessing an old memory of hers. And as she realizes that, it all kind of goes black and she slips back into like darkness. She then is described like searching through this darkness for specific memories for a summer after her friends left. It then picks back up with a young Ame, about 9 years old, bursting into the kitchen, and the summer festival is coming. But something's wrong. Grandmother Rin tells her to take a lantern and go stand out by the road. So she does that, and her lantern starts to go out after a while. And then suddenly there is a figure like looming behind her, standing over her in the road. A woman that is exceptionally tall, as Brennan describes, wearing a dark black gown with a headdress or crown maybe of dark spines, shadowy black, and a white porcelain mask. And this woman says, "Do you offer me something?" And Ame tries to deflect, and the woman again says, "I asked you a question." Ame then hears grandmother Rin's voice in her head, and Rin says, "You offer her a compliment," to which Ame then does. The woman says she's called Mirara, and she says, "You've come to light my way from the road to the door of Rin's abode." So she does just that, and once they all get inside, Rin says, "Ame, very good. Now, go make us some tea. I need to talk with my sister." Ame freaks out. She's like, "You have a sister?" But we quickly learn that is sisters of a coven. Mirara says that it's not a kindness that she came to meet. It was an obligation. Ame makes tea. Mirara grabs it, and Brenner describes like this hand coming out of the chest of this woman and then grabbing the tea and like disappearing back into the darkness. She says, "Time does not appear to be on our side, Rin. A decision must be made." Rin says, "I think you know where I stand." And Mirara says, "If these tidings cannot sway you, what possibly could?" And Rin says, "Maybe nothing could sway me." So Mirara looks at Ame and says, "Rin, your apprentice here offered me her hand." Rin says, "It was a gesture of friendship." And Mirara says, "Or it was a hand." She says, "If I'm forced by circumstance to act, to see my obligations fulfilled, then I will do it. These are desperate times. And if I'm offered something as special as the hand of a great witch's apprentice, how could I not?" And Rin kind of like cuts her off and says, "Mirara, I've never known you to refrain from a fight you thought you could win." Ame kind of laughs at this little jab, and Rin's like, "Hey, get out of the kitchen, go away."
Yeah. Don't you dare.
Yeah. And Rin's like, "I, on the other hand, refrain from fights I can win all the time." And actually, there's a little moment when Ame is like leaving the kitchen. She can't help but like look back at Mirara, and Brennan has her roll a wisdom save, but she rolls an 18, so she is presumably successful. But as Ame is leaving, Mirara says, "There's much the coven can do without full agreement." Meaning like even if Rin doesn't agree, like they can still take action. And Rin's like, "You can do as you must, but it will not be with full unanimity." Hopefully I'm saying that right. Rin and Ame then they sit down and have a conversation after Mirara leaves, and Ren's like, Ame, one day you will have a coven of your own as well. Marara is one of mine, one of 4. And for fate or for fortune, the coven you will inherit from me one day will be the coven of elders. You will be the witch of the world's heart. She then grabs something, I think it's like a book or a tome or some sort of like small case with a poem written on it that says, of open hand and trusting face, a home of homes does all embrace. She goes on to say, there have been many witches, and of these witches, there have each been of many people. I am not the first, excuse me, there have been many witches, and each like station of which many people have filled. I am not the first witch of the world's heart, but for the past 172 years, it's been me. The area of witch's care are in some ways her domain. A witch does not have authority, she has responsibility. You're responsible for what you represent. Of the Elder Coven, there are 5, and she's sad when she says this because Ren says when she was young and first became the Witch of the World's Heart, there were 7 in her coven, and there have been as many as 13. Marara is one of them, the Witch of the Waning Moon. There is also Grimoire, the Witch of the Wild Hunt, Hakea, the Witch of the Woodland Green, and Indri, the Witch of the Wind and Stars. Ame asks about the witches that were lost. Did they not have apprentices to take over for them? They did not. One of them never took an apprentice, and the other's apprentice betrayed them. Iruna, the Witch of the Wild Blue Sea, and Scalvi, the Witch of the Watching Fire, both departed their seats unsucceeded. Marara does not have an apprentice. And Rin just keeps telling her all this stuff and basically is saying, like, there's so much in the world you have to understand. There's value in the truths we are all able to speak to. And although I don't like Marara's truths and she doesn't like mine, they're there and they're both true. And Ame's like, how can there be more than one truth? And she says, the world contains multitudes. As a good witch, hopefully there are enough good things that are true so that your magic might flourish. And Ame's like, well, how do I know if I'm doing the right thing? And Ren's like, good question. Let's spend the rest of our lives trying to figure that out. They continue with Rin basically saying, you know, you're coming in at the end of my story, and whatever wisdom you think I have, I can assure you it's filled with mistakes that taught me that wisdom. And over the coming days and months, as Ame trains to become the Witch of the World's Heart, Rin continues to like fill her in on things and teach her about the world and teach her spells and lessons. And she says the world's heart is not a physical thing, but instead it is the tapestry in which all the parts of the world move together. And that her domain and a domain in general is a fluid thing, hard to define, but it's compassion, understanding, thoughtfulness, growth, to have 2 things join and become more than the sum of their parts. This is kind of the concept of the world's heart. There's then this awesome segment during this training where Ame takes her first broom ride with Grandmother Rin, and many of their adventures around this time in her life is about Rin's friends growing old, dying, transitioning of power. And she tells Ame, like, this is going to be a very dangerous time for the world when I pass on and you take over, because you're not going to have the same experience that I have in order to, you know, protect the world's heart. So you need to be very careful. We then learn a bit more about the witches in the coven. So we have the Witch of the Wild Hunt, who is a monstrous witch, and each witch has a little poem. And hers is, where beasts have tread and monsters fed, the bloody fanged maw has led. The Witch of the Wind and Stars lives in the far northernmost part of the world, of frost and stone, of ice and throne, the ruler of the self alone. The Witch of the Woodland Green, the holly branch and towering oak, the lemon leaf and thorn her folk. The Witch of the Waning Moon, which this is Marara, the death of light, the end of night, the all-consuming, the death of light, the end of might, the all-consuming dread of night. The Witch of the World's Heart, of open hand and trusting face, a home of homes does all embrace. And Ame realizes that of all of these stations of the coven, only one concerns itself with people. Hers, Rin's. All the purview of all of humanity, all of people, is decided by a single seat on the coven. So there is much in the world that is spoken for outside of people. We continue going through over the years of memories. Then Ame thinks back on her most sorrowful memory. And that's when she goes into town when she's maybe 14, and basically some other kids bully her as she's trying to figure out maybe who her parents are. And they're like, "You just showed up one day. Like, I heard you were born out of an egg." And she gets into a small fight. Rin scolds her back at home. They get into it, have a pretty good argument. And Ame is like, I could have like made them act how I wanted to with my magic. And Rin is like, "It terrifies me that you say that. Like, what you're referring to has the power to rot you from within and turn you into something you wouldn't recognize. Like, do not glibly invoke casting magic to hurt people." Ame's really upset. She just wants to be normal. And Rin is just considering the extremely dangerous statement her apprentice just made, but walks over and hugs her. And she says, "You miss them, don't you?" Referring to Ursulon and Suvi. She's like, "Yeah, to them, I was Ame. To everyone else, I'm just a witch. I can't be like them. I don't belong with the spirits. Like, I don't have anybody, just you." She apologizes for, acting out. It's at this point that Rin pulls out this toy that Suvi's parents gave her for Suvi that she still has. And it's like a little bouncy ball. And she tells her this lesson of how, it can never go higher than the point from which it was dropped. So similarly, like, feelings of great pain and loss come from great joy. It's a reflection of the friendship that you lost that summer that you feel so sad and lonely now. She's like, "I can't promise that it won't always be lonely. I don't have all the answers, but the world will always be ready to see you as a witch, sometimes in wonder, sometimes in fear." But she says, "I do see you and Suvi possibly meeting again. I talk to Steele about her all the time to make sure she's safe." And she's like, "I guess you're old enough now for me to tell you more about what was going on." And she tells her about how Suvi's parents and Steele were all involved in this investigation because there was this like corrupt sect within the Citadel that was secretly working to bring it down. And she's telling Ame this because, you're going to soon take my place, and this information is very dangerous and could get you killed. So this group was called the Acadator, which is this small group of individuals within the leadership of the Citadel that included Subi's parents and Steele, and several figures outside of the Citadel. And they were alerted to this rogue faction within the Citadel. And one of these people that was working with Suvi's parents was Yorin, like we've heard. And they called this rogue sect the League of Whispers. So the Acadator was operating outside the normal bands of authority because they didn't know who they could trust. And there was this like prolonged series of like secret missions and violence across Umora. And ultimately it was believed that the League of Whispers had kind of had to disperse underground in like the current time. So they haven't heard much about it, but Rin often asks Steele if there's any update, and Steele often asks Rin if she's heard anything about Yorin. So it kind of feels like Yorin perhaps was the one that betrayed Subi's parents. Memories continue to flood back. Rin tells Ame about all of her friends across the world. Mechanically speaking, just as the group is traveling along, Ame might be able to say like, "Hey, do I happen to know anybody here?" Brennan just says like he gives her all that information. Specifically though, he tells her about a couple alliances at the Citadel, a couple of wizards and a spirit that she could call on, and a powerful immortal warlock in the port of Kudroy on the inner sea of Ruve. There's a man named Thrawn. He sold his soul to the moon for immortality, and in exchange, he made a promise to always look after his descendants if asked. And since he's so old, he now has like thousands of descendants, and Ame is one of them. The last memory that comes back to her is the day before Rin became bedridden. She tells her there's a spirit moving upon the world in a way she's never seen before. He has held his breath since the beginning of time. The pilgrim under the stars, the man in black, the king in night, the stranger. He's been moving upon the world in a way that she cannot see since she was a young girl. She's never found a scrap of what his name might be, which means she doesn't think he's ever been bound. She says that earlier this month she was in a place called the Coven of Elders, or she was in a sacred place of the Coven of Elders called the Grove of the Well, and the stranger appeared and attacked her there, and she fears he's coming to the cottage. If he comes, she says, do not grant him entry. It is important that you do not lose this home. There is power and station here. There will come a very brief moment when I am gone that there will be no Witch of the World's Heart, and he will strike. She will tell her, Rin will tell Ame everything else she needs to know to prepare. And it's at this point that Ame wakes up and she realizes she's in the Citadel and the fox is with her. He immediately licks her all over and then essentially immediately passes out. She then soon encounters a Dr. Nadine Tamri who walks in the room and is like, you're awake. And she says, that fox has been awake the entire time you've been into a coma for the past month. And that's where the episode breaks. And
Yeah.
apologies for how long-winded that was, but there was so much.
You hit every detail. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah. Sorry, I had to step away for a second because my son's, I guess the door got shut on his foot or something. So it was like, maybe I should take a look at this. But no, yeah. A very meaty, lots of really cool information in that first like 2/3. Wrapping up some details before the episode ends. Will mention the fox already. The fox finally is like, now that his watch has ended, finally passes out on the bed. There is a caretaker, which I think you just mentioned. And the scene actually transitions over to Suvi and a bundle of blankets in her bed on this cozy morning. And in her bed is Silver, the wizard that that she had an eye on back in the very first episode of the series. And I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but it's been about a month. And what's important for Suvi around this time is that it is coming up to her ceremony of receiving her name cloak. And we come to find out that this is a process in which there's a lot of power in someone's name. And it is where a wizard dons a new name for themselves. We find out that her parents, Soft and Stone, that was their name cloak names, not their real names. And Silver essentially asks, Suvi what name she has chosen. And Suvi says that she has chosen the name Sky to be her new name, so to speak. It's also around this time that Silver is leaving through a dimension door to go back to his abode when she gets the heads up that her friend Ame has awoken. So we get this. I love how Aabria describes it as like a rom-com scene of like running through like the city marketplace, and it's very much that she rushes out to get to where Ame is resting. Essentially runs into Ursulon, who Brennan lets us know that the town now calls him, or they've continued to use the name Bear to refer to him. And they also pass through, I can't remember the name for it, but it's basically like the nicest part of the marketplace or the nicest part of the town. They eventually make their way to Ame's room. There are hugs and re-embracing of one another, but it is short-lived because Steel shows up. And there's this immediate sort of like tension of what to tell Steel or what to say to Steel. Regardless, Steel basically comes in the room and Ame essentially tells her, hey, all of my memories are back. To which Steel says, well, that's good to know. Maybe you should only share that with me in like a very private setting that we have control over. Basically saying like, hey, be extremely careful what you share and to who you share it to. And that is essentially where the episode ends. Episode 15, Hang On Tight, of Worlds Beyond number. I always want to say The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, me too.
But The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One. So anyway,
Yep. Episode or part 1 of chapter 2. And again, if you're just on the recap and want to see our full discussion, it'll be linked down below. But yeah, man, what an episode, and good to be back.
yeah,
I'd
we're
missed
so
it.
back.
We're so back.
Yeah, I missed it too. It was a great episode. I mean, we joked about it a second ago, but oh my gosh, the lore. Like Brennan, I feel like just like there was no, it was like a fire hydrant, you know,
Yeah.
just like, oh, and there's also, here's the different, you know, the witches and of the coven. And I was like, who is that again? What?
Yeah.
What do they manage?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, you guys heard me rambling about it. My notes are like 5 pages long on just that first half.
I think you got all the great details though. Like, you know, it's good getting like more of that world building stuff, because there's been so many questions we've had. Like, for example, we've talked about on the show, what's going on with names, and what we actually had said was, is Suvi her real name? We found out in this episode that her parents, that it wasn't their real name. We also found out that Suvi doesn't know what their real names were because they died. And also an interesting detail from Brennan about how not everyone takes S names.
Yeah.
Yet that is only what we have seen.
Right.
So, you know, which I don't know if we want to start there or not.
Yeah,
but
we might as well, since we're there.
Yeah.
I will, we've probably talked about this in previous episodes, but just as a refresher, I think it, and I'm paraphrasing here because it's been a while, but I think that like Brennan obviously had some ideas for the lore of the Citadel and perhaps naming conventions, etc. But if you'll recall, in that first episode, or maybe it was the first prelude, aka the first of the children's adventure, where Suvi is in that flashback scene with her parents leaving the Citadel, Brennan asks her, like, give me, like, how do you remember your dad? And she says soft, and for her mom says stone. So it was kind of like a serendipitous coincidence that Aabria happened to pick 2 S names. Like, that wasn't planned. But I think since then, that kind of got woven into the tapestry of the lore. So I'm really interested to see, like, it fully get fleshed out and we learn more about it, because like you just brought up, apparently not every mage is an S, and we've seen some that aren't, like Moro, for example. But I guess we don't know if that's because like our higher stationed mages always S, or which everyone we've met so far is, but I don't know if it's fair to, like, you know,
what was the chatter with Silver about when she said the name Sky? And there was like this, like, not tension, but kind of like, he was like, okay, yeah, because I mean, we were all going to wonder, like, was he saying like, if you hadn't chosen an S name, we were going to wonder? Or was it, if you hadn't said it was going to be Sky, that was going to be the issue? Or
to me it was an emphasis on Sky, because she said you're like the third Sky. So like, to me that was like a very few. I guess we don't like know how old the Citadel is, but you would think like probably most names have been chosen a lot. So for Sky to only have 3 ever, it must be like a really important like title. So that's kind of what I got from it. But what's also interesting is that I don't remember the episode number, but in Port Talon, when the crew was running around, Suvi didn't want to use her real name. She said, call me Sky. So like, so it's like a name that she has some history with, and clearly like didn't just make up on the spot right then.
I forgot about that. Okay. Yeah.
But it's, you know, or go ahead.
I'm just going to say a little Pixelist prediction proven correct. We don't get them all correct. In fact, we usually don't get any, but we talked about this naming thing, and you know, spot on, good stuff.
Definitely something there. But yeah, I mean, everything else is pure speculation, but I'm very curious about the S's in particular and Sky, because I mean, it obviously wasn't her mom or dad, which that would have been like an easy line to draw. Like, because again, like you were mentioning with Silver making whatever comment he made, it's like he almost predicted she would be Sky. So
yeah,
what's the connection? Because that's not the silence is the mage she's an apprentice for. And I mean, he's obviously
Right.
not dead, but like if
Right.
she had said silence, then that would also make sense. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. So like I'm assuming it's just lore we haven't uncovered yet, but you know, some sort of really prestigious history to Wizards with Sky.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Okay. A cool concept, this whole name cloak ceremony.
Yeah. That reminds me before we step away from that, and this, I mean, this goes without saying, I guess, but since we haven't said it, the whole reason for this is because the power in names. Like they don't want people to know their real names. Which I thought the cool dichotomy of this, being on the wizard side of magic, is that that's also true on the witch side, on the spirit side. Like spirits all go by their titles and nicknames. They don't want people to know their real names. And I guess we don't. It seems like witches go by their real names, at least Rin and Ame. But Rin herself spoke to the power in the titles that they all have, because Ame was like, those are all W's. Like, why does everyone's title start with a W? Like the Wandering Green and the World's Heart.
Woodland Green, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
The Wild Hunt. Yeah.
And she and Rin spoke to the power in names. So I just like that, and not that I expected anything less, but I just like the like through line through the entire world's ethos that this is a thing.
Yeah, and we have the plot detail of Suvi's parents' real name, but also Ame asking, like, "Hey, do we know Silver? Not Silver. Steel's real name." So I wonder if that'll come up at some point too.
Yeah, I actually really liked that too, where Steel was like, you know, it's typical that the younger generation never knows the older generation's name. And to me, that was almost like a way to consolidate power. Like the older generation will always be a leg up on the younger, because the older, for the most part, is gonna know the names because they'll know them when they were kids. Like, but like, because I'm sure most people don't even ever get like a name ceremony, you know, like only the best of the best. So like, almost like a means of control, you know.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
yeah. Where from here? There's so many like details to dive into.
So much lore. And
I will say, the fact that Ame's been here a month, at least in the short term, makes me less suspicious of Steel, in the sense of, you know, if Ame had a big secret about Steel, which she didn't directly, at least because we got all of our memories back.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have, you know, at some point in that month, like, oh, she fainted, I guess she's out, you know. But so in the short term, I feel okay about Steel, but I'm still suspicious about Steel.
Yeah, I'm still like, I've got my suspicion purely comes from like a storytelling standpoint, which I don't know if that's the same with you, because like it's not like there's really hard evidence. It's just that like it would really make sense if like that was the flip, like that was the shoe to drop.
Yeah, I'm basically encapsulating the players from my campaign, where anytime I introduce any character ever, they're like, "But can we trust them?" Like,
they're a double agent.
It's an 8-year-old boy. He's an orphan.
He could be a shapeshifter. Okay,
it could be.
So, but yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, honestly, Steel has been nothing but like the best, honestly, which is kind of suspicious in and of itself. But you know, her coming in and even making sure, like, hey, like, don't talk here. Like, make sure if we're gonna talk, it's, you know, in Suvi's place. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you, but I definitely still have the suspicion, and maybe, and this is kind of like an aside with no real things to grab onto to talk about right now, but I'll just get it out of the way really quick. I could see now that we have a more concrete idea of what was going on with Suvi's parents, something we've been talking about this whole time. And it's that there was like this secret sect within the Citadel that was plotting to take it down.
And was also the connection that they wanted to see the attack by Ruve successful, or was it just a matter of coincidence that like, hey, we want to see the kingdom destroyed, but oh, and also Ruve's attacking. That's great.
I feel like they have to be connected. I mean, maybe not like maybe not like super like they're all
Mhm.
Ruvian spies necessarily, like the members of this League of Whispers, but like they have to be connected somewhat. But
Yeah.
maybe just like enemy of my enemy type of thing.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
So yeah, I mean, I think so to some extent. But yeah, I was just wondering, like, could Steel be a member of this League of Whispers and was
Right.
kind of working, not working both sides? Because I mean, if she was in the League, then she's probably in the League. But you know, kind of the mole in the good guy group that ultimately led to them all getting
Well, and
taken care of.
I haven't seen Brennan's past content style for like his villains, for lack of a better phrase. But I do think it's always interesting in like story content when bad guys aren't they are more gray. So I mean, I could definitely see a situation like this where maybe Steel was a double agent and just trying to do something for the greater good, and
Yeah,
yet it maybe led to the deaths of Suvi's parents. Or maybe the greater good was done, but she's certainly not innocent, but she's also not like a twirling the mustache
right,
type of villain.
right. And
So
I keep having more thoughts here, and like it's kind of ridiculous because we have no evidence of this.
yeah.
But just to flesh it out, like if it was that type of case, um, a lot that we've seen is like the Citadel is not that cool. Like they're doing a lot of messed up stuff. Like not to mention Moro, who's not like he's not really part of the Citadel, but I think his intentions are kind of
hmm
representative of what the mages would do.
Yeah,
So
Brennan said
like
as much, right?
yeah. And so not that we don't know anything about this League of Whispers. They could just be like pure evil, awful, working for Ruve, just about toppling an enemy country. But it's at least possible that it could be like, hey, the Citadel is messed up. Like we're taking advantage of the spirits. Like this is not the balance of the world. Like we need to take down the Citadel, like you said, for the greater good. And so again, not that any of this is the case. Steel might not even be a part of it. But if she was, maybe that was her goal. Like I gotta return the Citadel to like its rightful, like just place in the world. And to do that, we gotta root out the corruption. And that might mean taking it down temporarily or whatever. So like there could be a cool dynamic there. And then it's like her best friends happen to be on like the secret council to try to take her down. And she's like, oh no, like maybe she didn't want them to die, but it was like a greater good situation. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Or maybe it was them or her.
Yeah.
It came down to that. So
Or maybe she had
um,
nothing to do with it. And there, there's no, undercover double agent plot.
Brennan, you
Um,
better not change it after hearing us talk about it this
yeah, we
much.
know you're an avid listener.
Yeah, we know you listen to us. I love you, Brennan.
Um,
And then there's this element of Yoren too,
yeah,
where here's also, just to add to the suspicion of it. Um, I feel like Yoren has to be in the know about something about Steel that Steel doesn't want people to know, because it's not like, hey, have you seen that murderer Yoren anywhere, or have you seen that betrayer Yoren? It's more like, yeah, has Yoren been by? And it's very much vibes of like, you know, you backstab someone, but you don't want them to tell anyone. They're like, yeah, has Tony come by? Or
yeah. You talked to him recently?
well, yeah,
Did
if he
he say
comes by,
anything?
just don't. Yeah, just curious. So I don't know. It kind of feels like that a little bit to me. Like, she keeps asking me if I know where Yoren is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, I'm probably just like reading into it, but
No, I'm
uh,
with you. Again, not this is not an evidence-based place that I'm coming from, but again, a storytelling, like a narrative place that I'm coming
yeah.
from, is that all evidence points to Yorin. Like it almost feels too easy, Like,
Well, and then was
go
it
ahead.
was it said that Steele was part of this? She was part of this whole like uh
The good guy group.
council. Yeah, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the Akeda
Yeah.
tour or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the other thing is we know that the curse, like the bile, was reminiscent
Yeah,
of
like smelled like Yorin.
smelled like urine. And
Sounds
then
funny.
we talked about how is it possible Steel like somehow made it smell like urine to divert attention to urine?
Yeah, or even just for people not to make fun of us that we just think steel is the root of all evil. But did did anyone make it
Yeah,
smell like
sure.
urine, you know?
Yeah. Well, the whole point I was getting at though is what was revealed that Steel wouldn't already have known, you know? That's why I'm like, what would the benefit of Steel have of creating the curse? Because I guess if Steel didn't
Right.
want them to know about the existence of the good guy group, but
Right. I guess at least to
I don't know.
that extent, there wasn't really anything incriminating towards Steele that we are able to
Right.
piece together yet. So maybe maybe it was somebody else. And on kind of this is where kind of on the subject. I thought it was really interesting that these memories it was like years. It was like tons and tons of memories, essentially like Ame's entire training, it felt like. Whereas prior to this episode, in my mind, it was more of like one or two conversations about like a hyper specific thing that they wanted them to forget. Um, but with it being all of this, it kind of like makes me kind of rethink some things. Like, um, maybe it's more about like, well, not that it was not, it was probably always about this, but maybe it was more about like the world's heart and keeping it as weak as possible by weakening the witch of it as much as possible, like make her forget her entire training. Like, I don't know, that was just a surprise to me to learn that it was so many
Yeah.
memories.
I could see it being something like that because definitely the memories took my attention off of Steel and back on the stranger, the king in the night, the pilgrim under
Right.
the stars, who I thought was more of a red herring early on, but now seems much more malicious.
Mhm.
And so it could be that. I also thought maybe the mechanics of the spell was like it's not like modify memory where you delete like a certain instance, but like it's just like a massive swath of, 70% of your memories are
Yeah.
gone kind of thing. So, which I don't know, but
Yeah, it definitely feels like the stranger, which I thought it was cool, cuz when we first learned about the pilgrim under the stars, was it episode 1? Maybe episode 2, like the
episode
real
2.
the
It's episode 2.
yes. All the names were listed. The stranger wasn't one, but then I think it was in, maybe it was even in the main story or it was in the fireside chat.
Fireside chat.
Lou, Aabria, and Erika kept saying, like, referring to them as the stranger, and Brennan was like, "That's really
Right.
cool," and that's how these spirits get names, is like colloquially like that. So it's cool that he added that in universe, in canon, to be one of the names as well.
But
Um,
Brennan added that from Planeswriter Wren, from Grandmother Wren, that very much positioned the stranger as big bad energy of like there's one spirit that's moving
Yeah.
that
like I've
something
never been able to trace his movements.
yeah, and then verbatim use the like he's held his breath since the dawn of time, which is what he said
Yeah.
introducing himself.
Which
And then go ahead.
this is obvious now to me in retrospect, but it like just clicked for me. So everybody else might be like, "Yeah, you idiot."
You're like, that's the guy from episode 2.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
But no, the breath. When I heard that in episode 2, I thought it was just like, like, that he's so
Right.
immensely powerful. He's held
waiting.
his
Yeah.
breath, but breath,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the spirit breath, like what
Right.
Ursulon just reconnected with. So, like, what would it
Right.
mean to hold that for the beginning of time?
It means he's been in touch with his feelings. I said in touch with himself, and it was getting weird.
He's a great listener.
Yeah. He's very emotionally self-aware
Yeah.
since the start.
But yeah, so like, and he also, we know for a fact that he attacked and injured Grandmother Wren.
Right.
So like, that at least gives him, well, one, motive, because we know he wants the world's heart for some reason, but also two, opportunity to have cursed her. Like, that could have been when Grandmother Wren got cursed. his attack on her. So, and maybe that's
Right.
like, again, this is stupid because this is just like storytelling analysis, but that also feels kind of like too easy, too clean, of an answer as to who cursed Rin. But it would at least make sense, and it would make sense into what I was just saying a minute ago about with all the memories being swept from Ame to weaken the world's heart. We know he wants it, so like that would there's motive there as well to have cursed her. And remind me, it was he showed up and they like he's coming back in a year. Is that what it was? And
Yeah.
it's probably been like 4 or 5 months, right?
I was gonna say about a quarter. Yeah.
Because we know there's
We
a
know.
month coma. Or go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say Steel added a time frame when she finally got to
Right.
talk to Suvi. When I feel like it was like somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks or something.
Yeah, I feel like they were like traveling around for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then there's at least the coma of another month. So I feel like we're at 4, give or take, on either side a little bit. So I mean, that's coming down the pipe. What are they even gonna do?
Yeah. Coming down the pike.
Is that what is that the phrase?
It's coming down the pike. Yeah.
I think pipe makes sense too, though.
I don't disagree. It just isn't it.
I'll let us know which one you say.
We know. Hey guys, we know which one it is. We don't need to let us know anything. I don't want to let Will down.
Putting a poll in the Discord. Join up. No. Let your voice be heard.
Here's the deal. For the poll though, it's what is it actually, not which one do you prefer? Because I ain't getting into this whole pike versus pipe. Rally your crew. Gets the better showing.
What is a pike?
You stab people with it. What do you mean? What's a pike?
Coming down the pike? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, coming down the shaft of the pike to the end. I know it's coming down the pike.
Coming down the pipe makes made more sense in that context because like there could be something traveling down the pipe.
My friend, I don't disagree. It definitely, I relate with pipe more, in my, post 2000s world. But
okay.
Anyway,
we'll have to look into this afterwards.
That was what was important in that moment.
Right. True. Very true. So yeah, he's coming down the pipe, coming down the mountain. But
it's coming around the mountain. We just keep going in circles.
Well, he's gonna show up. That feels like, I mean, like we said, it's only been about 4 months, and that included some time jumping. So
right.
The time until that year comes to pass could be 100 episodes of this show, for all we know. So it's not necessarily happening anytime soon, but it could also happen real soon. So that definitely feels like one road sign on the map that we're working towards. And given the whole Port Talon thing, not that there's still not repercussions to be had from that, but that's kind of dealt with. The curse has been dealt with. Wavebreaker removed it. What's next? Like, what's the next? Like, what's going to get them out of this citadel? What are they doing next? Do you think?
I think it's going to be, and we've talked about this in the sense of like, what would be the next things to play out? I think it's going to be what happened that night with Soft and Stone with Suvi's parents.
True. Suvi's definitely going to want to, like, when Ame tells her that's going to be
right. What happened? Where's Yoren? And this sort of like, who can be trusted in the Citadel? Who's part of the League of Whispers? Not
to keep harping on this, but just since you reminded me right there, Rin did say that Steel was one of the people she trusted, didn't she? When she was listing off like the allies she had, she was like, in the Citadel, like, I trust Steel.
Right. Yeah.
I think she said that was one of the people.
That didn't mean anything to me. I'm too far gone on my conclusion. I'm never budging.
Okay.
The show, it's like 5 years later. The show is over. I'm still just like, I know it. but that is I think a plot element of like, yeah, there are people in the Citadel that want to see the Citadel destroyed. I do think you kind of said this earlier, and I really like it in the sense of like, I think it'd be an interesting twist of like, there's people in the Citadel that want to see it destroyed. Like we have to watch out for them and avoid them, but that actually flipping on its head and being like, no, they are actually the good guys
Yeah.
because of the atrocities of the Citadel. Though interestingly enough, Rin didn't seem Grandmother Rin didn't seem to, as someone who cares for spirits, she wasn't like super vocal about, yeah, the Citadel sucks. I
Yeah.
mean, so maybe we've overemphasized that from, because I know we've pulled a lot of that from how Brennan's described Moro's excitement on the Derrig. But yeah, so
yeah, and maybe like to some extent it's like a balance, right? Like, maybe they kind of have to exist in some form or fashion, perhaps. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that Rin trusted her. We know that Suvi's parents trusted Rin. I'm wondering, like, I don't know, Rin was clearly respected by the Citadel. We know that she was on like the list of powerful people that Moro, I guess, when he got a rundown of entities to be aware of, that like she wasn't a threat. So like they're on good terms. Is that because she's the witch of the world's heart specifically? Like she's the human witch, like, she's a good one. Like, does the Citadel mess with Marara? Like, are they cool? Like, I'm just curious to know more about, like, I don't know, because it also felt like kind of, even though the Citadel like knows Ren and they're like cool, sort of, it did feel like it was kind of on the down low that Suvi's parents like were meeting with her and that Steele meets with her. So like, I don't know. I don't really even know what I'm saying, but I'm just curious to know more about like this relationship.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah, and I think there was even a detail like the Citadel's report on her was even like sort of like downplaying her a little bit or something. Like there was that
you're
thing
right,
where Brennan was like, hey, one of you isn't correct and it's not clear which one of you it is.
Right, that's right.
So,
but and I get it was Suvi that knew that, right? Like Suvi knew,
right? Yeah, it was like an insight check or something. I don't remember exactly, but
yeah, that's right. Interesting. And on the same level of like how strong Rin was, it seemed like Marara, like she was way stronger than her with the kind of like threats she was throwing out. We don't know that she was necessarily like way stronger than Arima, but she bested Arima. Like,
I think I missed that detail.
Well, like not that they fought or anything, but like and again, maybe this is just like wit and mental acuity and not like strength power, but like she kept her at bay with like the offering that like never went away. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. I think you're talking about Marara beat Orima. I was
no, sorry, Rin.
Where did that detail happen? Like, I was way confused.
Yeah, sorry, no, Rin.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely there was like a cleverness to that. I think Brennan said something along those lines, but yeah, and it could be that being the witch of the world's heart, that the like physical presence of expertise is like not as comparable as the other witches, but because I mean, like if Marara is much more cutthroat or brutal, like it would make sense because Grandmother Rin, like in watching over, like kind of the impression I got of like the description of the world's heart was, did I just freeze by the way?
Yeah.
Back? Oh, okay.
You're say something.
Hello?
Okay, you're back now. You were like your text was like really fast as it was like catching up, but we're good now.
Yeah, that was weird. With the impression I got of like what the world's heart is, I kind of got this sense of like what makes people human, like, and she even said as much like compassion, I'm putting words in her mouth, empathy, like all these different things.
Yeah.
And so, you kind of wonder if, not that would make you weaker, but like, I guess you can't be as brutal or harsh as maybe if you weren't watching over those things. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
No, I mean, it totally makes sense what you're saying. I'm just wondering like that is just truth what you said, but I'm wondering like, since it's all humanity, like there's also deceit and betrayal, but like those obviously are things Rin doesn't like stand for. She's not a paragon of those things, but like, can she draw power from like the darker sides of humanity as well?
I think that's what she wants to protect the world's heart from with the stranger.
Yeah.
Is like the stranger wants to, like, as Rin put it, like rot out humanity as a whole.
Corrupt those things. Yeah.
Though the whole thing's, it's a bit confusing that there is no physical world's heart, and yet the stranger wants access to her home to where their heart is not there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like, surely there is some kind of like physical or like literal illustration of this thing, even though Ren said there isn't.
Yeah, I think like there is and there isn't. Like, it's not like there's like a literal like telltale heart underneath the floorboards, you know, that's beating, but like,
yeah,
just like a domain, a feign of power. Like, it is like it's not a tangible thing, but it's a thing, you know?
Yeah, right.
So that, I mean, I don't know if that's right, but that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. But yeah, and we don't really need to go into this, but during the whole conversation about what the world's heart was, like you said, like compassion, and I think specifically she said like when two things come together and are greater than the sum of its parts. When she was listing different things, she also listed like non-humans. Like, she even listed like inanimate objects.
Right.
So I guess like she speaks for humanity, but it also is kind of broader than that too. Which is kind of crazy. And Brennan even made this point about like there are many things spoken for, and humanity is just but one. Like, they have one seat on the council. It's kind of crazy that there's that many other things. And I'm also, this is kind of switching subjects, but it's still about the witches and stuff. One of the big things we speculated on was what's going on with the Citadel and Suvi's parents and what happened there. We kind of have those answers now, but there's another side of this that I don't know if it's connected to that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But these conversations that a number of people have had with Rin about like, something's coming. Like, are you like, what are we doing? And specifically in this episode, Marara being like, if this isn't swaying you, what's going to sway you? And Rin's like, I'm not swaying. So like, what is Marara talking about? Is that like some other thing that's happening in the world, or is it tied to these wizards? You know, I don't know. Like, do you have a pulse on that? Do you think it's all the same thing, or is there like the spirits are mobilizing to, you know, I don't know.
All I know is it gets me super jacked. I'm just like, what are you cooking up, Brennan? What are you cooking up, Brennan Lee Mulligan? Yeah, all I will tell you is that I am a huge junkie for those little tiny like lore signals of like, you know, something's coming. And it's, you know, it's not really that insightful of like a story point, or it's not that new, but like, I love that kind of stuff. And I had the same wondering, wondering, is this something about, it feels like it goes hand in hand with conversations around the stranger, of like it being this one spirit that she hasn't been able to really figure out. I think it's interesting, like Marara doesn't seem like a very likable like hero type, and yet they seem, you know, bound to one another, like for the good of Umora. Also, I don't want to sidetrack us, so we can just table this for a second, but like I do want to talk about the Coven as a whole, and just like some interesting story points with that too, but not getting segued. But I don't know. It feels like a grander narrative and not like a season 2. I mean, maybe it would be. I don't know.
Yeah, and we can go ahead and pivot, but the last thing I'll say is I went back in my notes to see exactly what she says, and she says, time does not appear to be on our side. A decision must be made. Yeah. And that's when they have like, I think you know where I stand on it. So like, I guess we don't know exactly when this memory was. Ame was like young, I think. I think she 14. Was 9. She was 14 when she gets in the fight.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think so. And what, she's like 18 or 19 right now, I want to say
30. I was way off.
I don't know. You might be right. I don't know.
It's like 45, right? You know.
So yeah, I think she was 9, which that throws all of this I mean, who knows how spirits, or not, they're not spirits, I guess they're witches, but who knows how like
Right.
these weird witches view time. And we know Rin was 170 something.
Right.
So maybe we don't have much time, could still be like in 15 years. Which, sorry, I'm just piecing this kind of together myself. We know that I think this was after the summer with Suvi and Ursulon, but not far after. So maybe this would have been coinciding with whatever the Citadel stuff was.
Well, and I mean, Grandmother Rin seemed to know her life, like she was in towards the end of her life also.
Yeah.
So I'm also wondering, like, what was it like? I don't want to make the decision because I believe it should be Ame's decision. Like, I don't want to make a decision that she will then have to live out. So yeah, very curious about the decision. And then also, I thought it was just interesting too, like this whole like lore storyline of like how some of the members of the coven, like some of them didn't take what's the word,
apprentice.
An apprentice. I think it was the one or two didn't take an apprentice, and then the one where the apprentice turned on the witch, which made me think, like, are we going to come into contact with that person? So very interesting too that there's still like this sort of like human, like good and evil element to it, I guess, also. But I have so many questions, honestly.
Yeah, and sorry again, just like shooting Pepe Silvas into the dark, but like Mirara approaching Rin and being like, you have to make a decision, like how has this not swayed you, implying everyone else kind of agrees on the council. Well, Rin being the human witch probably disagrees because like they're like, we got to wipe out humanity, or not necessarily exactly that, but like their decision could be like, in order to prevent this thing blowing up, like we got to do something about it. I could see Rin not being in agreement because she's like protecting humanity, which would also kind of line up with, I don't remember if this was in the children's adventure. I think it was. But there is one part in the children's adventure when somebody comes to visit Rin and like Suvi has to hide because, she's like being kept safe there. So presumably it's like a Citadel type person or a wizard or something. And we only hear like part of the conversation, but it's like similarly, we don't have much time. Like stuff's happening. So these pieces could kind of line up that like Rin is awkwardly in the middle of this, being the human witch in like a grand strife between not necessarily like spirits versus humans, but that does seem to be kind of like a central thing that might play out in this campaign. Anyways, waxed poetic far long enough on this. You wanted
That's
to
good. I think it's great.
You wanted to move to the something about the coven.
I ended up actually just saying it. I really didn't have, as I said it, I realized I didn't have anything really that insightful to say about it. I was like, yep, and that's it.
No, but I am curious about like the whole apprentice thing, because I mean it seems like a vastly important thing to like make sure.
That is what I was gonna say, was like, why wouldn't you, if you're tending over such an important part of the world, why wouldn't you take an apprentice?
And like, maybe, I mean, we don't know, but like, at least it could feasibly be, I'm not dying anytime soon, I'll take an apprentice later. And then they just die before that ever happens. Or that could not be the case at all. And maybe it was like, I don't want to take an apprentice. I don't know.
Maybe they realized like their area of power like wasn't really that cool.
That might have been like, it.
I'm the domain of mosquitoes. Like,
I'm just gonna put it. This ends with me.
Taking one for the team.
And like, what happens to those domains? Like, we know there were 13 at one point.
I assume they just run rampant, right?
Yeah, like,
if the witches,
spirits,
if they're responsible.
Does that power like seep to the spirit world, and there's like a powerful spirit that manifests, or at least gets more strength or something?
Maybe like other spirits like consume the untended spirits or something, and they're called Bedathos or something.
Let's see what you're kicking.
Brennan just does like a full rip. It's like,
crudeness is here.
Yeah.
Pilgrim Under the Stars is his real name.
Yeah. He's a wizard. Still no elves or any other races.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting because D&D is so not interesting implying anything, but just D&D is such like a melting pot of like all these different races that I'm very curious Brennan's decision and if we will still yet encounter some of these other races.
Yeah, because I mean,
like
it is
lore
strange
point.
that they haven't explicitly shown up yet, but it could also just be like, they've been in vast cities. It's entirely possible that all the races were there, but they just never were
right
mentioned. They were never on screen or like important enough to like be in explicit detail. But
when he says like, so then in that case, like humanity would just be like a catch-all.
I would assume, but yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, at this point, I feel like it's more the first thing that they just aren't there, because it does feel weird to have not been mentioned yet. But it's at least possible that it's that they are there. Okay, so I'm just continuing to go through the massive amount of notes here. But is there anywhere specific you want to dive to next?
It might even be everything on my end, I think.
Okay. I'm interested to see more of the Citadel. I mean, most of the episode was the memories, but we did get a little bit of like the Citadel. Just awesome world building and super cool to me, and I just can't wait to like learn even more about it. Like I'm trying to find my part in the notes where I wrote this stuff down, but like the different courts and like the dome, like the Pyrian dome, I think was one thing that was mentioned.
And the Citadel's surrounded by sand too.
Yeah, like they made it, right? That was like they made the desert, which I was curious about that, if that was like a strategic move. It had to have been, right?
Yeah. Speaking of strategic move, not to segue us either, but just a tiny detail, the portal door to Silbury being functional again.
Oh, I missed that. When was that mentioned?
That's when Steele towards the end came in and was just like talking about the state of things, and she said, yeah, the portal door to Silbury is operational again. So we don't know why it was inoperable.
Why was it down?
And then now it seemingly works again. Like it can't be just some random detail, right? But,
yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. So yeah, that is really interesting. Also small I'm trying to find the numbers so I don't just have to make it up, but I can't find it right now. But the Citadel, the tower, the Citadel, I mean, we knew it was huge, but we got like some actual scale for it in this episode. Oh yeah, 8 miles tall. For reference, Mount Everest is 5.5. So
I actually missed that. Yeah,
this is like Mount Everest and a half tall.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I want to know all about it. Like I just love that type of world building. Okay, I actually found my section of notes where I wrote down stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think we've hit most of it. The fox steals every scene he's in, but just right to the heart that like he was awake for a month basically. Although I did kind of like the little detail of Ursulon being like, no, he slept when I was there. I love their little relationship, their little spirit relationship. Okay, now I know this episode's already been long, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. But on the Patreon, they did a special fireside for leveling up from 1 to 2, and there was some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So one, they rolled for their HP, and it was a pretty funny little segment. For people that care, Aabria rolled a 5, so her HP is now 15. Erika rolled a 3, so hers is 13. And Lou, they were all doing like practice rolls. He's like, let me do a practice roll before like the one that counts. And he was finally ready, and he rolled a 2. And similar to Critical Role, they'll re-roll 1s. So like if you get a 1, Brennan's like redo it. So he rolls a 2, and like he's just obviously defeated. Yeah. And Brennan's like, okay, you know what? I will give you 1 lifelong career reroll. And everyone's like, you got to use it right now. So they basically like peer pressure him into using it right then. And he rolls, and it's a 4, so better. But then they're like, oh, it fell out of your tray, doesn't count. So they let him re-roll it again, and he gets a 6. So
okay.
He has 22 HP now.
Okay.
So everybody got some cool stuff, which again, I'll just try to not spend too much time here. But Ame gets to choose her coven. And we were told that at this juncture, there were 4 options for her: of the green, of the claw, of the wicked, and of the heart. She chose of the heart, which I don't know if she probably didn't have to, but that obviously thematically lines up really well with what's
I mean,
happening in the story.
she's not going to choose of the wicked. I
Right.
mean,
And
of the
maybe,
wicked.
yeah.
Wait, what? For no reason, guys. You know.
And because of that, she got to, and they released all of this like homebrewed subclass stuff on the Patreon, which I don't want to obviously like spoil, because they obviously, you know, locked that behind a pay gate for a reason. So I won't like go into it, but they do mention 2 of the things she gets for that. One is called Curse of the Heartless, which is basically like a little thing that you can reduce damage from enemies to, you know, allies. And another thing called Heart's Gift, where you can basically enhance heals, which is pretty cool. Then Brennan did reveal, as they were talking about all this, that he is not going to allow silvery barbs in this campaign. Probably, you know, just too much PTSD from all his other campaigns. For Suvi, she has the Wizard of the Citadel subclass, which is obviously, again, homebrew. And the cool thing about this I wanted to mention is there's this mechanic that they've created, I guess, called secrets. And at level 2, you get 2 secrets, and every level thereafter, I think you get another one. And she's going through trying to pick which ones she wants. And like midway through, Brennan's like, you know what? I changed my mind right now. You get 3, and 3 to start with. So she picks Ricochet, Discovery, and Contingency. And Ricochet basically lets you, like, if the dice roll, like the number on the dice is even, you can choose to make that same spell attack on somebody else too.
Which is insane.
Yeah. But you have to re-roll for it. Like, you can't just like, it doesn't automatically hit. Then Discovery, this one's really cool. Discovery is if you've uncovered and read a secondary source of information about an individual, a kind of creature, a witness report, a prophecy, or a bestiary entry, and you fail a saving throw against one of its spells or abilities, you can choose to re-roll it, and as if it was an investigation check instead. And if you've read a primary source, something written by the subject itself, and it succeeds on a saving throw against you, you can contest its save using an investigation check instead of your spell DC. You can use each of these abilities against a creature only once every 10 years. So I thought that was really cool because it plays into like kind of researching your opponents. And the 10 years thing is kind of cool flavor wise, because I mean, in most cases, you're not really ever fighting the same thing twice anyway.
Well, and interesting enough, I mean, she has an encyclopedia of secondhand info from Ame.
Right. So I just thought that was a cool mechanically and also like world building wise. And then the final one she chose is Contingency. And it's when you cast a spell after choosing the targets and everything, you can choose a triggering condition. And so the spell is cast, but its effect doesn't happen until that condition happens. And if it's not triggered within 1 minute, it dissipates and you still lose the spell slot. So it's about kind of like really strategic spell casting that Aabria was like really excited to get into like the nuts and bolts of.
I like that too. It's like holding an action, but more expansive.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing that, you know, they all got like some new spells and stuff to choose, obviously. But the cool thing is she's thinking about and did take Find Familiar. She doesn't know if she's going to like prepare it yet. But the cool thing being like the dynamic there between her familiar and the fox, but also like she said that in world, like this knowledge kind of comes from seeing Naram and seeing spirits bound and subjugated. And like, she kind of didn't mean to, but now she realizes she could do that. And so like the familiar could be like a small version of that.
Yeah. I like that. That's pretty cool.
And Brennan said that they didn't want to talk about it on air because they want it to be a surprise, but he's like, I want to pitch some things to you about this. So I feel like that could be like a really cool dynamic. Yeah. And finally, Lou with Paladins, they get to choose their fighting style. He chose Protection, which that's not homebrew, but Brennan said, and he cited somebody else that I think has already put out like a homebrew version of the protection fighting style, but he said, we're going to make this better. Like we're going to homebrew it and make it better than it is. And
interesting.
I think that's the highlights. But just thought that was really cool. And they made it seem like they're going to do that for every level up.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
cool.
That'll be kind of cool peek behind the curtain of like what they're thinking and learning more about these homebrews. So plug for the Patreon for any of you guys that aren't a part of that. I gave you a tease there, but obviously like the whole episode was like an hour long, so they get into it. But yeah.
All right. Well, new app tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow, yeah.
I love it. I love that we got this in. Let us know what you guys thought of the episode, and please join the Discord.
Yeah.
We enjoy. We don't do watch parties for Worlds Beyond, but definitely we chat about it. Oh, we do.
I'm glad you said that because we don't. But I ran this idea by everybody like a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't followed up on it yet. So I don't know what it would look like, but it is an idea we're marinating on. Obviously, it wouldn't be a watch party, but potentially considering like a group listening party to listen to new episodes. So
yeah, that's cool.
Again, that hasn't happened yet, but it might start happening if that's something you're interested in. Yeah, another reason to join.
All right. Well, you guys need to watch We're Back and tell us if it's down the pike or pipe. And we'll catch you later.
Alrighty, y'all. Till next time.